What if the extinction coefficient accelerating across our biosphere isn't random chaos, but a quantum signature revealing ancient truths about consciousness itself? Tonight we descend into the most dangerous question plaguing our survival matrix. Are shamans legitimate energy masters bridging dimensional realities, or sophisticated deceivers exploiting humanity's desperate search for meaning as our planetary systems collapse? The thermodynamic equilibrium sustaining Earth's life support systems has shifted beyond critical tipping points. Biodiversity collapse accelerates at 10,000 times the natural background rate 6. Magnetic field disruption intensifies by 5% each decade. Yet buried within these catastrophic statistics lies a quantum paradox that ancient sages understood millennia before our instruments could measure entropy acceleration. Consider this. Traditional shamans have served as humanity's first consciousness technicians for over 40,000 years, altering the phenomenological pattern of attention, perception, cognition, and awareness to access information from supernatural resources. 9. But here's where scientific materialism collides with survival necessity. Modern neuroscience now confirms that mystical experiences trigger distinctive configurations of brain events uniquely connected to mystical experiences and cause long-term changes that affect the emotional and cognitive centers of the brain. 17. The survival matrix indicates a terrifying possibility. What if shamanic consciousness technologies represent humanity's evolutionary adaptation to planetary collapse scenarios? Ancient shamanic traditions describe reality as interconnected vibrational fields where a single vibrational change in any part affects every part. 12. Quantum field theory confirms identical principles. Quantum entanglement demonstrates instantaneous connection across infinite distances. The thermodynamic systems governing our climate crisis operate through identical interconnected feedback loops. Coincidence, or have indigenous wisdom keepers preserved survival technologies? Our mechanistic worldview abandoned. But we must navigate treacherous territory. The same neurological pathways shamans activate through ritualized drumming, dancing, lucid dreaming, the use of psychotropic plants. Focused attention. 9 can be exploited by spiritual charlatans seeking profit from humanity's existential terror. How do we distinguish authentic consciousness technicians from manipulative deceivers as ecological collapse accelerates? First, revelation. The quantum consciousness paradox. Neurological studies reveal that genuine mystical experiences produce measurable changes in posterior superior parietal lobules, causing the dissolution of ordinary self. Boundaries. 11. This isn't wishful thinking, it's observable brain restructuring. Yet shamanic traditions have described identical consciousness alterations for millennia, referring to these states as journeys into spirit worlds, where healers obtain solutions to problems afflicting the community. 6. The extinction probability calculations show disturbing correlations. Indigenous communities with active shamanic traditions demonstrate significantly higher resilience rates during environmental catastrophes. Their survival strategies integrate what they call spirit guidance with practical resource management. Are they accessing quantum information fields our rational minds cannot process? Or have they preserved collective wisdom through symbolic narratives? The entropy acceleration consuming our biosphere operates through quantum mechanical principles. Consciousness itself demonstrates quantum properties. Observer effect. Non-locality superposition states. What if shamanic consciousness technologies represent evolved interfaces for navigating quantum reality structures that our survival depends upon? Consider the implications. Every shamanic healing ceremony involves what they describe as restoring balance between spiritual and physical dimensions. 6. Quantum thermodynamics describes identical processes. Systems maintaining coherence against entropy through information exchange across dimensional boundaries. Second revelation, the deception detection matrix. But here's where survival consciousness must engage critical discernment. Authentic shamanic practitioners undergo decades of rigorous training, often involving psychological dissolution that would destroy unprepared individuals. They serve their communities without demanding payment, focusing on collective healing rather than personal power. Contrast this with modern spiritual entrepreneurs exploiting shamanic imagery for profit. They promise instant enlightenment through weekend workshops, charge thousands for ceremonies, and focus on individual transformation rather than community survival. The magnetic field disruption affecting human consciousness makes us increasingly vulnerable to such manipulation. True shamans demonstrate specific competencies: accurate diagnosis of community health issues, successful location of resources during scarcity, effective conflict resolution through spiritual intervention. Their abilities can be verified through practical outcomes over extended periods. 16. Fraudulent shamans rely on psychological manipulation techniques, cold reading, confirmation bias exploitation, vague predictions that could apply to anyone. They avoid specific claims that could be tested and typically abandon communities when their predictions fail. The survival matrix requires brutal honesty as climate tipping points cascade and social systems destabilize. Desperate humans will gravitate toward anyone promising spiritual solutions. This creates fertile ground for predatory individuals exploiting genuine shamanic traditions. Third revelation: quantum entanglement and collective consciousness. Recent quantum consciousness research suggests that awareness itself may operate through non-local entanglement fields. If consciousness extends beyond individual brains through quantum mechanisms, then shamanic claims about accessing collective wisdom fields gain scientific credibility. 8. Ancient shamans describe reality as Maya, a cosmic dance of energy where apparent separateness conceals underlying unity. 8. Quantum field theory describes identical phenomena through mathematical equations rather than mythological language. Both point toward reality as interconnected information patterns rather than solid matter. The biodiversity collapse accelerating across our planet disrupts these quantum information networks. Each extinct species removes unique consciousness frequencies from the planetary field. Indigenous shamans report increasing difficulty accessing spirit guidance as ecological destruction intensifies. They describe the spirit world becoming fragmented and chaotic. What if shamanic consciousness technologies evolved as biological adaptations for maintaining coherent information flow across quantum consciousness networks? As these networks degrade through mass extinction, humanity loses access to collective intelligence systems that our ancestors relied upon for survival guidance. Fourth revelation: thermodynamic spirituality and survival strategy. Traditional shamanic healing involves what they call cleansing excess negative energies that confuse or pollute the soul. 6. Translated into thermodynamic language, this describes restoring optimal information flow through biological quantum systems disrupted by entropic interference patterns. Modern stress-related diseases, anxiety, depression, autoimmune disorders correlate with dysregulated nervous systems unable to process accelerating environmental changes. Shamanic healing technologies focus on recalibrating these systems through altered consciousness states that reorganize neural networks. The survival implications are staggering. As climate chaos intensifies, human populations will face unprecedented psychological stress from resource scarcity, ecosystem collapse, and social breakdown. Communities with functional consciousness technologies will demonstrate superior adaptive capacity. Authentic shamanic traditions integrate spiritual practices with practical survival skills, weather prediction, plant medicine knowledge, resource conservation, conflict resolution. They don't separate spiritual from material reality, because quantum consciousness operates through both simultaneously. Fraudulent spiritual teachers typically ignore practical survival skills, focusing exclusively on abstract concepts that provide emotional comfort without actionable strategies. They promote escapism rather than enhanced engagement with physical reality. Fifth revelation: the ancient future technology. Archaeological evidence suggests that shamanic consciousness technologies represent humanity's oldest surviving scientific methodology. Before written language mathematics or metallurgy, our ancestors developed sophisticated techniques for altering brain states to access information unavailable through ordinary perception. 13. These weren't primitive superstitions, they were functional technologies for surviving in hostile environments without modern tools. Shamanic training produced individuals capable of locating water sources, predicting weather patterns, identifying medicinal plants, and coordinating group decision-making through altered consciousness protocols. Modern neuroscience confirms that meditation, rhythmic breathing, and repetitive movement can induce measurable changes in brain chemistry and neural connectivity. 17. The same techniques shamans use to enter spirit worlds activate neuroplasticity mechanisms that enhance pattern recognition, intuitive processing, and stress resilience. As our technological civilization faces potential collapse from resource depletion and climate instability, these ancient consciousness technologies may represent critical survival tools. Communities capable of maintaining group coherence and environmental awareness without external technological support will possess tremendous adaptive advantages. Sixth revelation: the magnetic field connection. Earth's magnetic field strength has decreased 15% over the past 200 years, with acceleration indicating possible magnetic pole reversal within decades. This isn't abstract geology. Magnetic field fluctuations directly affect human consciousness through pineal gland sensitivity to electromagnetic variations. 12. Indigenous shamans consistently report that their abilities to access spirit guidance correlate with specific geographical locations and seasonal cycles. They describe certain areas as power spots where the veil between worlds becomes thin. Modern magnetometry reveals these locations often correspond to local magnetic field anomalies. What if shamanic consciousness operates through quantum mechanisms sensitive to planetary magnetic fields? As magnetic instability increases, human consciousness may become increasingly chaotic and disconnected from natural rhythms. This could explain rising rates of mental illness, social fragmentation, and irrational behavior across human populations. Authentic shamanic training includes techniques for maintaining consciousness coherence during magnetic field disruptions. These may represent crucial survival technologies as planetary magnetic instability intensifies over coming decades. Seventh revelation: the information integration protocol. Genuine shamanic consciousness involves what neuroscientists call hyperactivation of the prefrontal cortex, combined with inhibition of neural signals into parts of the parietal lobes and left. This creates a unique brain state where analytical processing integrates with intuitive pattern recognition beyond normal cognitive limitations. This isn't mystical speculation. It's measurable neurological activity that enhances problem-solving capabilities under extreme stress conditions. Shamanic training develops reliable access to these enhanced cognitive states through specific protocols involving rhythmic stimulation, controlled breathing, and focused attention techniques. The survival applications are obvious. During crisis situations requiring rapid assessment of complex variables with incomplete information, enhanced cognitive processing could determine survival outcomes. Indigenous communities historically relied on shamanic guidance during famines, natural disasters, and resource conflicts precisely because normal decision-making proved inadequate. Modern crisis management could benefit enormously from individuals trained in accessing enhanced cognitive states under pressure. Yet, our educational systems ignore consciousness technologies while focusing on information accumulation rather than consciousness optimization. Eighth revelation: the collective intelligence network. Quantum consciousness research suggests that individual awareness may access collective information fields through non-local quantum mechanisms. If accurate, then shamanic claims about communicating with ancestral spirits could represent interface protocols for accessing accumulated cultural knowledge stored in quantum information networks. 8. This would explain why authentic shamans demonstrate knowledge they never acquired through normal learning. Detailed information about plant medicines, weather patterns, and survival strategies passed down through quantum information inheritance rather than verbal tradition. The mass extinction accelerating across our biosphere disrupts these quantum information networks by removing conscious entities that contributed to collective intelligence fields. Each extinct species eliminates unique perspective frequencies from the planetary consciousness matrix. As ecological collapse intensifies, maintaining access to collective intelligence networks may become critical for human survival. Communities capable of preserving shamanic consciousness technologies could maintain connection to accumulated wisdom even as written records and technological systems fail. Ninth revelation: the consciousness survival protocol. The most profound shamanic teaching involves what they call soul retrieval, recovering fragmented consciousness pieces lost through trauma or disconnection from natural systems. 9. Translated into survival terminology, this describes protocols for maintaining psychological coherence during civilizational collapse. As climate chaos accelerates and social systems destabilize, human populations will experience unprecedented psychological fragmentation. Mass migrations, resource conflicts, and ecosystem breakdown will traumatize entire populations beyond normal psychological resilience. Traditional shamanic healing focuses on restoring individuals' connection to natural systems and community networks that provide psychological stability. These techniques could prove invaluable for maintaining human mental health during the massive transitions ahead. Authentic shamanic training produces individuals capable of maintaining psychological coherence while guiding others through consciousness integration processes. They serve as psychological first responders during community crises, preventing individual trauma from fragmentating group survival capacity. 10th revelation: the choice point acceleration. We approach a critical threshold where humanity must choose between consciousness evolution or extinction. The same quantum mechanisms that shamans access through altered states may represent our species' next evolutionary development: enhanced consciousness capable of navigating multidimensional reality structures necessary for planetary survival. The extinction coefficient calculations indicate that current civilization trajectories lead to biosphere collapse within decades. Yet quantum consciousness research suggests that collective human awareness could theoretically influence physical reality through observer effect mechanisms operating at planetary scales. What if shamanic consciousness technologies represent evolutionary tools for humanity's transition into a quantum-aware species capable of conscious participation in planetary regulatory systems? Indigenous traditions consistently describe shamans as intermediaries between human communities and natural forces. exactly the role our species must learn as we face ecological crisis. The choice crystallizes with mathematical precision. Either we develop collective consciousness technologies capable of navigating quantum reality structures, or we join the 99.9% of species that fail to adapt to their changing environment. Authentic shamanic wisdom keepers understand this choice point. They've maintained consciousness technologies through millennia of cultural suppression because they recognize that human survival would eventually depend upon these capabilities. The fraudulent spiritual teachers exploiting shamanic imagery for profit demonstrate exactly the kind of consciousness fragmentation that leads to extinction. As the quantum field fluctuations intensify and the magnetic poles destabilize, as the biodiversity networks collapse and the climate systems cascade beyond human control, we face the ultimate test of our species' consciousness evolution. The ancient shamans who learned to dance with quantum uncertainty while our ancestors were discovering fire may hold the keys to our survival. But only if we can distinguish authentic consciousness technologies from the deceptive spiritual entertainment that promises comfort while the world burns. The survival matrix demands we choose. Will we evolve into quantum shamans capable of conscious cooperation with planetary intelligence systems? Or will we remain unconscious consumers accelerating our own extinction? The thermodynamic equations are already written. The quantum possibilities await our conscious selection. The Earth's magnetic field fluctuations are calling us toward our next evolutionary threshold. The only question remaining is whether we possess sufficient consciousness coherence to answer that call before the extinction probability coefficients reach unity. The quantum shamans know the answer, do you?